There's to be no eating in the library. Your bathrooms are behind there. Go through the door and turn left, and you have male and female washrooms. If there's an emergency, we exit through here and go out to the muster point. Yes? So those are some of the protocols that we would need to observe concerning. Also, turn off your cell phones. Make sure your cell phones are off so that we do not interrupt the lecture. I want to introduce to you this evening our host, who is a very, very special lady in the Tobago space, and certainly the Trinidad and Tobago space. She's a lot of fun to be around, I can tell you. She keeps us laughing all the time. She has a tremendous sense of humor. She's a mother. She's a grandmother. She's a widow. She is a very active personality in the communities of Tobago. She has served as a former independent senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, representing Tobago. She's widely respected in Tobago for her decades of community work, and she's still at it in her 8th decade of life. She's very active. I have adopted her as my auntie, so I call her Auntie. And she has been awarded and recognized for her work in the communities of Tobago. She was the first person ever given the inaugural Community Champion Icon Award in Tobago, and she was recognized there for outstanding service to the development of the communities of Tobago. So she was among 51 community champions honored. She was the only icon, however. She's known for the development of people and grassroots initiatives in Tobago, always a good advisor. Can always get some good, sound, solid advice from her. And it is my pleasure and my privilege this evening to present to some of you and to introduce to others Dr. Eastland Mackenzie, better known as Dr. Mac, who will be your host for this evening's session. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and I don't know how some people could sit and concoct all sorts of things about people and recite them so convincingly that she would have you believe everything that she said. Thank you, Karen, for your introduction, and let me say a very warm welcome to all of you. I know that we have several activities on this evening in Tobago, all of interest. And so the fact that you have chosen to be here says that your interest in what is going to be delivered and discussed and so on is of utmost importance to you. And those of us who have organized this, I say on behalf of all of us, thank you for coming and thank you for being on time. When it was 2 minutes to 7, I said to Karen, it's 2 minutes to 7, go and start the thing. Because we have to respect people, their time, and, you know, the efforts that they make to be present with us. All of you are important. I see some very special friends. I don't want to call Vanos and Mohini and them name, but I see some special friends. So I want to say, on behalf of the organizers, a very warm welcome, and thank you very much for coming. As you would know, our custom is that we start with prayer. We always start with prayer in the Tobago sphere. In the Tobago space, whatever it is, we start with prayer. This evening, we are not only going to start with prayer, but we have Chief our Olofin Ogunsola with us, sitting right there, and he is going to also perform the libations. So we have it double. Can't be wrong. But we miss one way, we get the next. So let me pick somebody from those sitting among us and say, hey, get up and say the prayer. Lystra, Kojo, get up and pray. Get up and pray. If up to now at your age and your hair gray like mine, you can't pray, you should have stayed home, get up and pray. Yes, Lystra, Kojo is going to do the prayers for us. Ladies and gentlemen, she might ask you to stand, so let me ask you to stand before she does. Yes, Lystra? Lystra Sebro.
Good evening, everyone. And as Dr. Max says, thanks for coming. I don't know why I should say that, but I thank you and I thank God for us being here. Father, thank you for this special day. Thank you for the information that we would all get this evening. I hope it would be enlightening and enriching to us all, and that we would seek our purpose. In your precious name, I pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Remain standing as I invite Chief to do the libation.
I want to say a cabo, greetings to everyone, alafia, and good night. To all elders, to all esteemed guests, to all keynote speakers, and in particular, Dr. Rita Pemberton, for bringing everything, for piloting this meet here today. As it is known in the custom of our ancestors, as pointed out by Dr. Mack, before we start anything, we always pour libation. Water was here before all of us. It is water that plays a particular role, an integral role in our inception. It is water that signals our entry from the spirit realm here on the material plane, what we call birth. Birth is a spiritual thing, by the way, more than it is physical. Omi tutu, omi tutu, omi tutu, ele tutu, ele tutu, ele tutu, ona tutu, ona tutu, ona tutu. Before libation, to appease energies that we call forth, not only through prayer, but when we meet. What do we pour at the earth to open the way for good, for growth, for development? It is water we pour on the earth to open the way. With this water, the sacred water, we open the road for peaceful dialogue. We open the road for growth and development. We open the road for clarity. We open the road for unity. I pray, I demand that the seed that we are about to nurture, that has already been planted, that we are nurturing here tonight, that eventually it will grow into a great tree, the cotton tree of Tobago, as a matter of fact, that not only we who are standing here now can find shade, but those who come after us. I pray and I demand that Olodumare will start with us. Olodumare is who we call God. I pray and I demand that our ancestors will start with us. I pray and I demand that our children will also start with us. I pray that everyone that is gathered here, that you will go back to your families tonight, and that you will not only share the information, but encourage them to be a part of meeting like this. Yes, there are a lot of elders here, but we are missing a lot of young people. The young people are the key to tomorrow. I pray and I demand that as we gather here from time to time, this must not be our only gathering. That as we gather from time to time, that everything we start with our head will always meet a reasonable and a profitable conclusion. I pray and I demand for peace in the island of Trinidad and Tobago. I pray and I demand for peace amongst our family members and units. I pray for peace within our community. I pray for peace in diversified forms, by diversified means, from diversified places. Ashe? Ashe? Ashe demand.
Thank you very much, Chief. Take your seats, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks again. And for those who have just come in, we say to you again, a very warm welcome. Come in, make yourselves comfortable, and the place is slowly filling up, but we are really, really proud and happy to have you come with us. And now we go right into the program, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to this self-repair campaign. We have Dr. Lovell Francis. Who is he? Who is he? We claim him as Tobagonian. We say anybody who could have that kind of interest in Tobago to come and share with us his experience not only in the Caribbean and so on, but in Africa especially, where he's lived for years, serving so many of the countries of Africa. He must have something to share. But apart from that, he has a passion that is driving him. And we are very careful in Tobago not to let him drive us crazy, because he is so into it that I am sure you are going to feel the passion when he speaks for a few minutes to us. It was that kind of influence and that kind of merging with Dr. Rita Moses Pemberton that why we are all here to discuss and share and understand and take action. You know, one of the things I say is this: it's no use we hear, understand, know that we have to do things differently, and all we leave is with the knowledge. We don't do anything at all about it. There's nothing we put into action to change how we were to what we should be. That's useless. If you only want knowledge and you're not going to change and do things differently and think differently and work differently and serve differently and have a different kind of mindset, you could sit down home and listen to the radio. And you turn off the radio when you finish, and it doesn't make any difference in your life. So let us pledge that when we listen, we hear, we understand, we accept, we appreciate, and so on, it's going to make a change in our lives. Dr. Francis, you know.
Good evening, everybody. That is not a Tobago welcome. Take two. Good evening, everybody. All right, that sounds much better. Dr. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Dr. Pemberton, who I blame for getting me in all of this, good evening. Members of CivilNet, good evening. Members of the Council of Elders, good evening. Akila, good evening. I know where Blair gone. Hopefully she comes back. So, in absentia, good evening to Blair. Ladies and gents, Tobagonians, and I hear I'm in the club now, us Tobagonians. Good evening, everybody. Right. My mother taught me a long time ago a number of lessons, and having a very large head means that many of them have stayed within it. One of them is this thing that goes in gratitude is worse than witchcraft. Have you ever heard this before? I have you out your house Today is Thursday, right? On a Thursday evening to listen to history. Were it a terrible historian, that would be a bad kind of punishment, but fortunately she is not. But still, let me echo Dr. Mark, I appreciate you for being here. Because literally you could be anywhere else in the world or on this island doing anything else, but you're here. And for that, I am thankful. And I think that deserves a round of applause for yourself. And I'm actually not mama-guying you. Well, not so much. Not at all. Why am I here this evening? Why are we here this evening? Well, let's start from the beginning. I work with a group called the Repair Campaign that is a new group in the reparations struggle in the Caribbean. And they've been doing two very interesting things. One of them is that they're running a campaign in, of all places in the world, the United Kingdom, trying to convince those people across the Atlantic of all of the wrongs that they did during the era of African enslavement, during the era that historians now call that age when Africans were kidnapped, captured, and transported across the Atlantic, that some people still know as the slave trade. All the wrongs they did during that era, and we could go from A to Z with them, that there is a need for them to make some repair. And they're waging a campaign over there. It's basically of trying to educate them about the bad things they've done and that they need to make some repair. And that is important in its own way. Far more important, in my opinion, is that they've chosen 4 Caribbean countries to run grassroots campaigns. Those countries are, no surprise, Trinidad and Tobago, that's kind of why we're here, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and Guyana. And what they've done is they found what they call organizers, and our job is basically to help to create a grassroots movement to aid the reparations struggle. The intention is not to muscle anybody out, it's not to take over, it's not to fight for turf. It is under that umbrella of CARICOM having a 10-point plan about this thing that we are part of that and we are aiding the movement. So that's what the Repair Campaign is doing, and they are responsible for organizing all of this. Me, on the other hand, I have had a very long journey with reparations that in its own ironic way has come full circle. When I first heard about this issue, I was very young and very foolish at the university. I am no longer so young, but I'm a man, lady, so I'm still somewhat foolish, so some things never change. And a very wise man, a much wiser man than me, long time ago, 30-something years ago, mentioned this word reparations. And I knew the basic concept, and I said to him what I will say to you now, proving the statement I made previously of how callow and foolish I was, that anybody who think them white people gonna pay we any money for what they did in the past had to be dotish. So I said to him, and he looked at me like the fool I was, and he said, well, they might not pay us money, but they might stop telling the lies they told about us and allow us to reclaim our humanity. And proving I was not entirely stupid, I shut up, because he had hit me with something I did not expect. Because in my mind, like in the minds of many people, reparations is about standing around waiting for $1 that the more cynical of us might think will never come. Turns out, to my considerable surprise then, and not so much now, this is a kaleidoscopic thing. It's a broad thing. It's an all-encompassing thing. And I don't want to undermine or undercut in any way what Dr. Pemberton is going to say, but I'm going to say to you very simply, we could go from A to Z if we're talking about reparations. There is no aspect of our lives, there is no aspect of our culture, there is no aspect of our identity that this idea does not influence, does not impinge on. And I'll go no further because I don't want to take away from what Dr. Pemberton has to say. So one of the things we are more concerned with, and you will hear a lot about it this evening, is the idea of self-repair. Because to the wisdom of the repair campaign, and I'll give them kudos for this, they have understood something it took me a lifetime to understand, which is that as Caribbean people, we have the ability, we have the agency, we have the know-how, we have the brilliance, we have the intelligence to fix any and all of the issues that we have in our culture. We are more than capable of doing it. Long time ago when I used to lecture at university, I used to tell the students there, we were never meant to still be here. Our societies in the Caribbean, all of them, Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, Martinique, Guadeloupe, doesn't matter the nationality, were all created for one reason. And that reason was to produce raw materials for export across the Atlantic to make somebody else rich. That was our only function. We were literally meant to be throwaway societies, and when they deemed that no longer profitable, we were to be discarded. But we're still here. And whereas we might not be entirely pleased with the state of our societies, we are still here. And whatever displeases us, we can fix. So, reparations went from a one thing that I couldn't wrap my mind around to a global construct that I am still, in my own way, interrogating. And we'll hear some of that this evening. When I came back from Africa, I was looking for purpose in life because I am one of those people that if you don't find something useful for me to do, I will start making mischief, and none of us want that. Dr. Pemberton was like, hey, listen, this thing is coming up. I think you could put your hands into, doing something good. And she encouraged me to get involved, and I am ever so grateful for that. So when I asked the Tobago elders and CivilNet, what should we do in Tobago? Do we need another lecture? And they were like, you know what? We could do that, and we have the right person in mind. It was only right that I go back to the source, to the beginning, and ask, and I'm very grateful that she has agreed to do it. Whether, for whatever reason, I am thankful. So, let me end, because my mother used to say, brevity is the soul of wit. It was her favorite Shakespearean line, which was her way of saying, talk less, not more. For men, talking less is more. Let me end by saying thank you. It will be worth your time. We have a meal after, but you will get a meal before you get that meal after, and both of your bellies will be full, as well as your head. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis. Ladies and gentlemen, we have actually put in our program one of our young people. We have Miss Cameron Bruno, who is a spoken word artist, Caribbean known, deeply rooted in culture, community, National Youth Council youth poet, heritage personality, slam champion, speaker, author. She has performed in many cultural institutions in the United States, and the type of words she speaks, she explores the intersections of identity and resilience and everyday life. And I understand that she has a voice that is both grounding and unforgettable. Where are you, Cameron? Yes, ma'am. Ready for you. Take over.
Good evening, everyone. I just had to place myself in the back because hearing Dr. Mack read your bio is an honor. So I was sitting down there and I'm like, oh, who is this wonderful person that Dr. Mack is speaking about? And then I remembered that it was me. Good night, everyone. Usually I would say something before pieces, but I feel like this piece speaks for itself, so I hope that you enjoy. They said the earth was born on a Thursday. She, the earth goddess, Asase, finds a way to split herself between the cycle of life and death. She governs the gateway, lent the rights of cultivation to the living, knew that the land was more than dust, but the people anchored their babies into her land, planting navel strings in the dirt. We seek solace in knowing that we belong here. To be of this Tobagonian tribe is to hold no weight, is to know of the land. They said, folklore tends to turn the ordinary into something magical, like how we dig for clay in the Belleforme soil and caress our bodies in mud for the uprising, like when no one can explain how we still paying the toll in minimum wage or in murder, like if our ancestors haven't always been able to make it back up to the surface again. Their bodies morph into the routes we take back to them, their tongues, like tides. Oral traditions lie between the brim of a casket and the outline of their tomb. We cry, grieve the Tobago that could have been if we didn't lose that silk cotton tree. Asase spared us this land to recycle the dust of our people, but we stay grounded and bury into the ground again and again and again, knocking on her doorsteps. We are forest dwellers of the highest decree. We shouldn't have to fight for freedom, but yet here you are, stuck under the shade of a money tree. Know how to take a shortcut and always complaining that the eagle taking the long route, the worst thing, a scandal. Like being on the front page when trying to get to the back of a funeral. The fastest way to wealth around here seems to be over the fence. But the grass is always greener to some extent when the fertilizer is used at someone else's expense. Today is Thursday, literally. Asase opens her womb to receive her offering. We all know how dangerous it is to be close to a God, and this is a warning. To stand here is to stand on burial ground, to be present on earth as a woman. To stand here is an act of rebellion. An Ashanti's tribe war cry turned gospel, turned bongo, turned looking at the back of the casket yet again, but the forest doesn't ask for credit or favors. She would use you as an example as to why you don't thief from the people and them mini-mart, as to why you should never want the fruit without putting in the labor. And what if the river ruptured and washed away all of our banks? We'll be left with nothing but ourselves. We'd sing songs of chantwells and we'd know what it means to dig for treasure, for bodies. So let me show you how a real bongo night does go. Because I know when we're on the shore, we'll always win, find a way to weave our way back into the heritage. To be Tobagonian is to know the resources of the land are way more powerful than any paper or polymer or penny. To be Tobagonian is to know that the resources of the land are way more powerful with its people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Bruno. Well, the part where get me and make me feel really that me belong here is where the navel string berry. All are we navel string berry, some part in the earth, somewhere about in Tobago. So all are we belong. Thank you very much, Miss Bruno. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the hardest part of what I had to do is to introduce Mrs. Dr. Pemberton. Very hard task to do because, you know, long time when we went to school, they give you a long passage so, and they tell you condense it to this. How you could condense something so long and from somebody so tall into something so short and brief? But nevertheless, who is Dr. Rita Pemberton? A former senior lecturer, head of Department of History, Deputy Dean of Student Affairs in the Faculty of Humanities and Education at UWI, St. Augustine, Trinidad and Tobago. Catch my breath. Holds a PhD from UWI, taught the history of Trinidad and Tobago, imperialism and Caribbean history. Past president of the Association of Caribbean Historians. Was a member of the Caribbean Examinations Council, CSEC Caribbean History Examination Team, and later Chief Examiner in Caribbean History. She serves as Chief Judge of the Eric Williams Schoolbags Regional Essay Competition since it started in 2007. She was a member of the working committee of the subcommittee to revise the THA Act and to talk about the position of Tobago in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. By now we're tired and hungry, but they say the meal is to be served after. She has served on several national boards, and most recently, I was privileged and honored to be sitting on the committee where she chaired the committee to review the placement of statues, monuments, and signage in Trinidad and Tobago. She researches and publishes on the history of Tobago. Every week you could read something about some aspect of Tobago life written by her. And she's currently working on the history, the heritage, and the legacies of the people of Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, our own ship Naval Stringberry here in Tobago. So she is Tobagonian. And so I bring to you Dr. Rita Moses Pemberton, our speaker for this evening. Keep your questions, because we have a question and answer section after. So please, keep your questions. Write them down.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for attending, because I know we have these competing exercises. But I am very pleased to be able to hold a discussion with all of you all, and thank Dr. Mack for her introduction as well. But, you know, many people say they went to school. Some say they never know anything about enslavement. Others say they just tell them how people were slaves, and then they were freed, and everything was handy-dandy. But it didn't quite go like that. So in our attempts to come to terms with what is required under reparations, as Dr. I forget your name. As Dr. Francis said, I'm only kidding, right? That reparations does not involve anybody giving anybody a large sum of money just to enjoy, right? So what I am trying to do here is to show you, one, that, as mentioned, the reparations campaign involves a number of people at different levels in society. So if we, I need to tilt this so I can see what's up there. No, go back on the first page. Next page. Right. If you look at the subtitle, oh, 3. I stand here. Right, so if you look at the subtitle, you see resistance, heritage, and tradition. The I's have it. The I is for emphasis. So later on, we will understand fully what that signifies. So this is just to give you an outline of what the reparations agenda is. It's a 10-point plan produced by the CARICOM Commission on Reparations. And these 10, I mean, we could read it. I'm not going through all of that, but just to show that these are the things that they are thinking about, given interventions in areas where it has been determined that the imperial powers really have imposed on us, apart from the system of slavery, a whole system of our inability to elevate ourselves. Right, so what they have identified is a role for government and people in administration. How was that green one? I can't see it. The light green. What?
Public organizations.
Right, public organizations like what is organized there today, institutions, and you know the banks and so on, have a bad habit of imposing some charges about which you are not conscious. When you go into the bank for anything, you have to pay for it. But they don't tell you, but when you get a statement, if you're lucky to get a statement, you realize that, you know, they've been chipping away from your account. And then the last is self-repair, that you have to be prepared. You have to understand what comes out of reparation and how you can benefit. But, you know, we, as a people, certainly Trinidad and Tobago, we do not take our public responsibilities as seriously as we ought. People don't vote. I don't want to go. Or if you vote, then the government can do anything, and you don't say anything. That's not it. If you want to have a place, proper place in your own society, you have to say something. So what I have set out to do is to use our history to show a number of things which I think people don't understand. One, we talk about ancestors and we talk about their struggle, but we don't all fully understand how this struggle was expressed. We could talk about Roxborough and the fight, but all struggle is not physical fight. You have other forms, and we need to look at some of those, because some of those other forms of resistance, I think we have not fully come to grips with in our everyday living and even in some of the things that we are taught at school. So we will discuss that. Right, so yeah, so that the whole idea of the presentation is to stimulate discussion, to get people interested and involved in a different kind of way. I want us to look at the list here. The ancestors after 1838, now in the textbooks and in some of the books you've read, they will talk about freedom. And you know, there's a song, Freedom Isn't Free. There was no freedom. There was a continual struggle for freedom after the passage of the Emancipation Act. So it is absolutely erroneous to say we got freedom. They changed the term. We referred to it differently. They didn't talk about slaves. But the conditions under which enslaved people lived did not change after 1838. So resistance, no, go back. Resistance
was expressed in what we now call heritage, which I will explain, and the traditions that some of us like to keep. The whole purpose was to assert your identity. I am not a slave. I am not one of your lackeys. I am seeking dignity through my expressions. And food, language, creative activity, all our celebrations, and all our community activities. Whilst for any specific day, they might well be a celebration, a time to express joy, but what I want you to understand, that along with that was an element of resistance. So there was resistance in everything that they did. Despite the cooking the food and all of us together, we're doing that because we were living in a society which kept us boxed in, and these were the opportunities to express ourselves. Yes, sir. So, what have we inherited from those who went before us? The legacy is what I call a platform for self-repair. You have to move yourself from being and thinking like what the enslaved people were made to be by their owners. They were made to think they were nothing. Their language, their looks, everything about them was negative. They were inferior people. We have to get past notions of our inferiority. But it has become a market strategy to make people believe that they don't look right, so they must make it right by buying this, that, and the other. Now, one thing about enslavement was not only imperial control over the bodies and the labor of people, but it was control over the mindset. You're not beautiful, you're not pretty, you know, you're black and ugly. And we grew up with that. So many people can remember, well, them who have nose like mine, grandmother stroking the nose, greasing it to make it straight. Right, so remember that one. But I'm more, you know, your picky head. You're supposed to have long, flowing hair. And if you don't have that, you have picky hair, that means you're ugly. So you have nose that broad, you have lips that big, and you don't have no hair on your head. I remember going to school with a young lady whose hair was short. She had thick hair and it was very short, but you had to wear ribbons. She couldn't even get a piece out to put a ribbon. And what she did, she had a ribbon and she stick her hairpin in it and stick the thing in her hair. I mean, what is all about that? You're going to school to learn, and somebody's telling you just because you're born with short hair, you shouldn't have that, because why you wear a ribbon? What do you need a ribbon for? Anyhow, so the platform is our sense of identity, our ways of communication, and I'll get back to that one, our practices, the lend hand, and so on that we did, celebrations. Now, the lend hand, we have to come back because nowadays we have bank, you don't have lend hand anymore, but that is a deficiency of how we're going forward. The foods we cherish. And again, we have to talk about food, serious, our celebrations, how we go about. All of which, in those days, after the passage of the Emancipation Act, brought communities together. So, if you are a childless man, don't think you're going down in Canaan and get a wife, right? You can't bring sheep, right? Okay, it's community strong, and they used to work together, do things together. They had a little competition. I mean, the thing about the Canaan woman or Banacor woman is but the fellas, community strong society, that is what Tobago was. I want you to ask yourself if you are convinced that Tobago today is still community strong. And part of the legacy is land owning. From the period of enslavement, people realized the value of land. The persons who ran the country got the ability based on the fact that they were land owners. And so as a landowner, you had access to land without too much cost, and you had the facility of getting a group of people to labor for you, for your profit, and for their destruction. But that part was not important. So we want us here and all the people on the island to understand something. So I want us to go back to enslavement, to go back to our history. We're not going to just to lament. We're going to use it as an analytical tool to understand what was happening to us across this period of enslavement. So they created a society that was intended to restrict. It was not changed in 1833 when the British government passed a law. It wasn't changed in 1838 when the name was removed. And so they had to exist with that system right down to the end of the 19th century. So the system, which was started how many years before, was intended to restrict. And so the system was intended that the population would always be available as a labor force. No movement up, a labor force for the plantations and for whatever they want to do. The system provided no dignity. You had no privacy. You had to go and live where he said to live and under the conditions that he provided. So there was no avenue for any change, and certainly not for upward. But what I want to say about change and upward mobility, which happened after 1838, change was also based on making more divisions. So you had a white ruling class, but that was a small portion of the population. They needed support in the event of a rebellion of any kind. So how did they do this? They used the color thing. Well, you know that enslaved owners raped young, luscious black girls and women. They mixed. So the hierarchy was this: white on top. But when you want assistance against black rebellion, you bring in some enslaved people in the army. Now that was, all right, so you build up your numbers like that. But also you bring in some mixed colored people. So you start the color line thing. So these colored people who get to serve in the army, they were put in control over the black fellas who they brought in. So the color thing now starts. And then when you, on the plantation, the man in charge, right, was brown. And so you cement, so as a black man, you wanted to move up, but you could only move up if you get some milk to put in the cocoa. You're thinking, okay. You're thinking immediately, nobody didn't tell you anything, you know, they did that, and that is how the system worked. And it worked right down, so that there was a belief that brown was better than black, and lighter brown, the darker brown, and dark black, you out of it. Right. So, no respect, no privacy. But despite the living conditions, there were things about their homeland that the enslaved population remembered. One, philosophy, guiding philosophy. And you know, when you deal with African societies, there were a number of philosophies that were used to guide the communities. One of them was Ubuntu. Ubuntu says, I am because you are. So it is a unifying force. It has a respect for others in your society and using your society, bringing people together to move everybody forward. Next, there was a close connection between food and pharmacy. Well, that wasn't the word they used then. But you had a garden, you plant things to eat, and you plant things also that had curative value. The Europeans discouraged that. They said it wasn't good, and that people making them sick. And I saw a report where administrator reported in Tobago that the people keep getting sick, and the reason they get sick is they eat underripe fruit. Well, if he had come to get some chow now, he would understand. Underripe fruit will kill nobody. But the thing is, you grow your little herbs, and you know, you will get some bush tea. In some cases, they couldn't afford milk every night, but certainly it was recognized that in your tea, you must have sometimes some leaves. They discouraged that, but if they come, all of them come back, now they are selling mango leaf, soursop leaf. We have all of that growing in the bush. Why are we buying that? That's what I want you to think of. Why are we importing those very herbs that we have? They laughed at us. They say, don't do it. But they were quietly researching, and then they come and they put them in little capsule. The capsule ain't doing nothing for you, no. It's just making it convenient. And I don't know if your body wants that. And then the little something inside. So we have to keep thinking before we buy whether the convenience packaging is doing us a wrong. We are sending money right back to those evil people who exploited us. They continue, therefore, to exploit us in other ways. The Emancipation Act, as I said, brought no liberty to anyone. It was same laws, same restrictions, same persons in charge. And one of the things that was written as a law that nobody sought to break is that they must not have any possessions, particularly the possession that they wanted most, which was land. Land was important to the freed people, the people who were getting out of enslavement, because the land provided an opportunity for you to acquire dignity, for you to get recognized as a person. And that respect, I read where this person had, well, first there's a tradition of the white men driving in their buggies, they passing each other on Main Street, and they tip the hat. But after 1838, some black people had buggies too. So one of them decided, tip the hat. The white man was appalled. How could he? In the report, you know, he's saying they're rude, you know? So you don't respect me, although I have a piece of land. So everybody recognized what was important was to get control of a piece of land, to have respect, to have some kind of dignity, and most of all, independence from plantation labor and control. You know, the owner of what is now, the estate that is now where Magdalena is, he decided that people who come to work for him had to give him 3 days. So he was only paying 2 days a week, because you have to give him 3 days free labor for the privilege of working on the estate. And he wanted to assume office on the island. So you see the kind of opposition we were up against. So when we look at the history of Tobago, whatever we see there, all of them have echoes of resistance, whether it is in food, whether it's in what you plant to eat, or whether it's a celebration, you have some element of resistance. And I want to draw attention to one. There was only one single area that they were never able to control. I'll pay $1 million to anybody who tells me where it is. Okay, I'll keep my million. Nobody wants my million. Communication. Now, one thing about enslavement was to keep your property together away from outside influence. Because if the outside influences are there, you will lose. You'll always have riot, uprising, what have you, to avoid that. So they passed laws. You can't be on the street in the night. You can't have celebrations. You can't beat drum. You can't play any kind of musical instrument because it's noisy and disturbing to the peace. So you must finish work and go home and sleep. But all the laws passed. It didn't stop a tambourine band from being established. They would take away the drum. They will go and dig up in the people's mattress and try to find it, and they will go to the abattoir when they kill animals and move the skin and dispose of it so they can't make it, but it didn't work. But the one thing, now I'm giving you $1 million again. What is this one thing? This is your second time, and if you don't make it, you'll never be a millionaire. You see that conch shell? That conch shell. Now, the conch shell, we know, blow when fish come in. They have different blows. They have a blow for big fish, and they have a blow for small fish. And when jacks come in, they have a particular blow. But they have a blow when there is a disaster out at sea. And the blow will tell you if it's out in the sea or if it's close to the shore. Or if the seine bursts or something happen or somebody fall ill on the boat, they have a blow. They have a blow if they have a death in Charlottesville, and everybody to know. So they have different blows, and them plantation owners figure they're smart enough, but it blow over the head. So they have no laws, no existing laws against the blowing of conch shell, simply because they didn't understand. So anything they didn't understand didn't get touched. And this is why language was so important. You talk in the Tobago tongue, you could cuss them, they don't understand. You don't have to speak the Queen's English. There's no such thing when you go to England. You go to England, you in a world of different language over there. There are no Queen's English, right? But in schools, that's what they tell me, and we have to speak properly. So, we have a heritage of land owning. We also had a pattern. The reporters, magistrates wrote about it. The people in Tobago did not like to squat. They had opportunities, estates abandoned. They preferred to buy land and become the owner. So what did those fellas do? Sell them land that they didn't own, sell them land that they had no proper title for, sell them land without giving them receipt for the money, sell them land that was swampy or rocky or way on the top of hill and not good for anything, right? Despite all those restrictions, we still ended up with a population with some people owning land, some people owning significant portions of land. And therefore, that's a matter of our heritage. And this is why I underscore the I in heritage, because I have a responsibility, so did every I inside here, that you have a responsibility to hold on to that. Tobago people have become a little generous with their desire to get rid of what they have inherited. And we must ask now, same thing that was asked in the 17th century, why are Europeans so interested? Why are other people now so interested in our land? Ask yourself, and you will find the answer. So, despite that, we have the landowners. Now, as I said, the Emancipation Act had no provision for freedom, right? So the only option was self-liberation, what you do for yourself. That means you have to start thinking. What you do, instead of buying what they used to order, because enslaved people were fed. They imported saltfish and smoked fish and all kinds of stuff for you. What you do, they bring cornmeal, all imported from the States, and we start growing corn. We buy the mill, and we make our own cornmeal. But nowadays, everything is very instant. So you go and you buy a packet, you don't know what it is. Some years later, somebody come up with a notion that ain't good, it contain elements of something poisonous causing cancer. And I want to draw attention to one. Now, every baby has gripe. So it is said. Either they get gripe from the mother, or the mother eats some gas-producing food, or that the food didn't come on time. So we have what we call gripe water. So every baby, you go in the hospital, the nurse is giving the child gripe water. Now, they didn't know that gripe water was 49% alcohol. So, sweet sleep. Now, I am not giving anybody who like alcohol in here an excuse to say that it comes from that, you know. Your alcohol problem is quite different. But there's the whole notion that you have people, Woodwards, advertised in the paper, not only then, you know, right into the 20th century, Woodwards gripe water. And that was part of the household for a baby that was coming. So all the little baby get the gripe water and they sleep off happily. So this is why you have to look at advertisements very, very carefully. So this is what I want you to look at things without being caught falling for gimmicks. Right, so the restrictions on land didn't stop people. They still look, they still try to buy, they still save the money, they still build their drums, and the intention to keep people dependent did not work to the extent that was hoped. So, the resistance. How we do that? As I said, Lenhan allowed you to build a house without cost, because the principle was we get a group of men together, we get the material, and the woman cooked, and you fed the men, and you built your house, and then you moved on to the next person who need to have a house built, and you give the lend hand. So you really owe no bank nothing. But Tobago didn't even have a bank to start with. But what I'm showing is that the whole idea of community activity ensured that people were able to provide themselves and their families with some of the items that they needed. The little piece of land you have, you reared animals. Everybody. A pig was like a bank, because when you needed money, when you needed cash, you could sell it. So you didn't have to beg anybody. Now, plantations also had shops, and the shops on the plantation were always more expensive than anywhere else, and the quality bad, and they always try to tie it up with you working there. So you have to keep working, otherwise you're not getting no money. So we want to respect our heritage of landowning, and families need to get together. If you have to sell it to somebody inside your family. Now, I want us to look at what we do today. We have celebrations of heritage and culture and tradition in a number of ways. You have Heritage Week, 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks ending on the 1st of August. You have Tobago Day, 1 day. What signals are you sending there to people? That your tradition and your heritage is 1 day or 2 weeks? Why not encourage people to live it? You have blue food. You have this weekend of blue food. How much, no, let me put it the other way. Are there any records of the amount of dashi that has been cultivated in Tobago and put on the market since the start of the Blue Food Festival? If we're going to Trinidad to buy it or buy it on the docks of the St. Vincent boat, we ain't going nowhere. Right? So all our traditions must be centered on us. We used to have bene balls. People used to cultivate bene. I know my grandmother used to have a nail on the wall, and the bene hang there, and then when it dry, you shake it out, and that bene was brown. Then somebody decided it was cheaper to import from China. So what are we doing to us? Why can't we go back to growing bene and have our own local supply? We have imported cornmeal. My grandmother used to have a corn husk, hook on a nail in the kitchen and dry, and that's for the next season. So the next season you plant that, and you don't have to buy none. But I heard that it is said the sweet corn is faster. It's faster, but every year we have to buy more seeds. We don't save any because they don't grow. And she should understand why they don't grow, because we are accustomed to seeds producing plants. So we have curry crab. What of our crab population? Do we have one? If we don't have one, and we say curry crab is a tradition, we have to go somewhere for the crab. But other people, I went to a mall in Trinidad, big sign, curry crab. Now, Trinidad has some hairy crab. I don't know about you, but I ain't eating that. But what I'm going to say, if you are doing curry crab and you have a competition, what is different about your curry crab that make me want to eat it? So I asked somebody a very miserable question. I say, do you all purge those crabs? What is that? No clue. I say, well, I eat no crab that I purge. So they pick it up from the swamp down there and clean it. You have to look at all these things. What's on the market is not necessarily what you want to eat. And you should not give up your traditions and your expectations and be blown away by the market. You have to hold on to your traditions. You have to respect people regardless of their size and color. But the media is powerful. Anytime you look at the media, you're seeing fashion. And the fashion is for you to buy something online. Fashion and beauty is the biggest market to control people. So now it is everybody's Rapunzel. Everybody's Rapunzel. You have to care that, first of all, there are chemicals put in those that hair to make it manageable to put on the human head. And I don't know why, well, I know why. People like to look nice, like they see on TV, so you get the hair, right? It's a market. You are buying, and they tell you everything, you know. They say black people buy anything. Just advertise it. They will buy it. But before you buy, you have to think. Clothes, food. So everybody like to pass and buy the box food. It is well established that fried food, particularly fried foods in oil that has been refined, is not good for the human body. It contributes to the cancers and so forth. But we still like the boxes. And we see the boxes as a symbol that we have reached, you know. We see the shoes. They have to be brand name. You have to wear brand name things. I want anybody in this room to tell me or to name to me somebody whose shoes better than Ted Arthur own. Name, anybody. I'll give you $1 million again. Nobody. But you will go and buy that. And the thing about the brand name, the brands change all the time. So you always have to get another one. And the little children don't want the washikong that many of us grew up with. Nobody, no butter shoot, no butter bullet, none of that. You know? So keep what belongs to us. Keep our traditions. The tradition is you buy what you could have afforded, what is available locally. That is no worse than what is on the market. We have to keep our communities together and resist those bombarded ads that are directed, just like the banks, to get your money. Your African roots provide you with strength, and the basis for strength, you go back to that. So these are some of the things that provide us with the platform for the service to be provided by the Reparations Commission. So we can't, it's not donations giving us money, is allocating for structural changes that need to occur to give us a chance why we have a high degree of hypertension and diabetes, alcoholism from the sugar industry. I mean, some people, some wages used to be paid with alcohol. Get everybody drunk. So what you have to do then is preserve our dignity. Hold on to heritage. How you express yourself. You must participate in the decision-making process. You must not leave it to anybody. You must make your views heard and your desires known to the people who represent you. Make yourself respected, and most of all, love yourself. So you don't need a nose job or a bottom job or any of those jobs. You're good gesture. Promote and support your culture. Reparations are there to repair. You have been through your ancestors a process of self-repair. You need to continue that. Because you went to high school and they didn't go, didn't mean that you're smarter than them. So, liberty lies in the heads of men and women, and children too. So, if we want liberty, if we want to elevate ourselves, we have to do it first and make everybody understand that is what we want for us. I thank you.
According to the people, wow, 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 wow. You know, what is remarkable about your session, Dr. Pemberton? If you see our sit down there watching to see what your hair look like, if you get nails, if you get this, if you get that, you are living what you are preaching. And so, you will have a chance to talk, ladies and gentlemen, so let me not say more about Dr. Pemberton's discourse, because many of you were talking while she was speaking by your nods and your bobbing your head up and down, agreeing with her, and so on. So we were hearing you loud and clear. At this time, for just 5 minutes, I want to ask the chairman of our Council of Elders, Mr. Mervyn O'Neill, to say just a few words. Mervyn, where are you? You're always sinking down low. So, and then we'll have questions and answers from the panel. Dr. Pemberton, Dr. Lovell Francis. Come on, Mervyn.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Thank you all for being here this evening. I will take a brief moment to show you or to connect this evening with where we are going. This evening marks an opening shot in what we have been working on for the last going on 3 years, called the Tobago Sankofa Conference. Sankofa meaning to look back in order to go forward. We, including Dr. Mack and others in this room, have been quite careful not to simply sponsor or put on a conference. We have been careful to be planning and intending to work with and on something that is useful to us as Tobagonians in the first instance, and out of which will come what we will call the Tobago experiment. We have looked at the fact that Tobago is quite unique in many ways, and we have dedicated ourselves to apply that uniqueness. I will say, for example, that Dr. Pemberton speaks of resistance. Some people characterize Tobago as backward, slow, or whatever. Some of us who look more critically at the matter ask ourselves, isn't that a form of resistance like we here in Tobago? Now, I would leave it there for what it is worth. And as Dr. Mack has asked me to be brief, I will be brief, only saying to you that in July, we hope to go public with the first phase of the Tobago Sankofa Conference, which is intended to be a perpetual matter leading to self-repair, starting with us here in Tobago, and hopefully, and yes, I have asked Dr. Harvey after he is through or while he is with that Caribbean matter to join us here in Tobago with what we are doing, and he has agreed. The point I'm making here, this is about all of us. The Sankofa Conference is with, for, and about all of us, and we are looking forward, coming off of this evening, to have a few more events and on until we indulge ourselves with self-repair. Where does reparation come in? Because we are critical, we have looked at reparation beyond money, which it is not. We now refer to reparation resources. And when we get to that point, to begin to work on our self-repair, we will ask those communities which are engaged with this reparation matter to help us by providing the necessary reparation resources so that we here in Tobago can do what we need, and hopefully out of this should come some kind of a model through which and by which the rest of the nation and the region could probably find something useful. We are lucky here in Tobago in that we are sheltered behind what some of us call the Trinidad Veil. We can do things over and over until we get it right. And I can tell you, we are quite critical at what we are looking at. For example, we speak of reparation resources. We speak not of repair, but of self-repair, which will need some in-depth analysis to understand that we can only move from where we are to where we need to be by being involved with ourselves. It's no longer hands out for handouts. We got to involve ourselves with ourselves. We speak of, or we hear of, education. We, through the Sankofa Conference, are speaking of pertinent education. We can throw the question out. What education is pertinent to us here in Tobago that we will stand with equity and dignity in the community of humanity? I want to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elder O'Neill. And I look around at the members, I thought I saw Margaret Wright I see Rodney Piggott. Well, Karen is there, but I hope I didn't miss anyone. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you that in the planning of this exercise years ago, 2-3 years ago, was our then chairman, Mr. Reginald Dumas, the late Reginald Dumas. And this evening, we acknowledge the input he made into this whole idea and what is happening here this evening. Now, response, questions, and we hope we have. I see Dr. Francis coming back to join Dr. Pemberton, and your questions, your comments, your agreements, your need for explanation or clarity or whatever, this is the time to do it. After the question and answer section, our member, Mrs. Karen Bart Alexander, will do our vote of thanks. We have a closing prayer, and then we have our refreshment span. So, where is Dr. Francis? Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Questions, whatever you have. We have microphones there. No, I forgot 2 little things. We didn't ask you deliberately or specifically for registration, but it will be nice if you will register your name and contact, because sometimes we need to, when we need to go further, we need to say, these people were there with us, we would like to have them come back. So feel free, put your name down, a contact number, so we could get to you. And we have the microphones, so you can go, identify who you are. Try not to repeat the question that a former speaker would have asked. And try not to be too long, you know, so that everybody will get a chance. Okay, thanks.
Dr. Mackay, can I go first? I can. All right. So first, you want to know my name, that's Vanus James. And second, Dr. Pemberton, Dr. Francis, hello, but Dr. Pemberton, listen. I left my home to come and listen to you this evening. I brought paper to write notes so that I could write down questions to ask you. My paper blank. You know why? Because you were so clear and accurate in your analysis. It wasn't worth my while to spend any time writing and missing anything you were saying. But I still have a question. I think following on your analysis, leading up to this togetherness and unity and tightness in the communities we built up. That question is, do you see, in the context of the perpetual repair process you simply have set a platform for, do you see any role for any empowerment process, any community empowerment process that would be a part of this self-repair process you've described?
Yes, I do. The self-repair program must be conducted, one, in the homes across generations. We have a problem because in many cases, a generation is missing. We had a situation in the early 20th century when the grandmothers took care of the children whilst their children migrated to work. And as a consequence, those children grew up steeped in, those with a grandmother grew up steeped in tradition. Now we have a situation where our children are being reared by the TV or some one of those other things which does not refer to our traditions. So we have to make sure that in our communities, and you see also the community activity, the children playing together, the relationship between people of different ages, I see that as agency for self-reliance and self-repair.
Let me take a jump at it. Good evening. Patrick George is his name. Now, I have a problem with the discourse this evening, because I noticed that there seems to be a shifting, because my first impression, initial impressions about reparations, it meant some sort of a monetary whatever, all right? Now, you seem to suggest to me that back then, when things was what it was, seemed to be better than it is today. Now, I have noticed, my time, the transformation, a change, whether it is better or not, because there was some hardships back then, right? Now that we have some ease of comfort, the fast, everything and so on, whether it's good or bad or not, are you suggesting that we return to that type of thing? I'm trying to understand the self-repair, right? And realizing that we do not have the economic wherewithal to deal with and fixing some of these things. Because I'm thinking, that war that's going on, well, they say they spend $25 billion in shooting missiles and so on. And we have a water crisis here. Some of that money that they think shouldn't be funneled to help us build desalination, if that is what is needed. But we have to squeeze the land to get whatever remaining gas and oil that we have to send to them for them to pay us. And it's kind of, so I understand that we as a people, there's a need for greater unity and all that. I understand that, right? But there seems to be something else missing here, right? And we cannot let the imperialists, the people, the exploiters, right, and the beneficiaries of what went on then to continue living in luxury whilst we now have to. I mean, it's difficult to tell a man live himself by bootstrap. I mean, you ever try it? It's not easy. I don't know.
No, I think you misunderstood something. I said that the CARICOM 10-point plan has at the bottom a section for self-input, right? Now, there are provisions for dealing with issues that were stimulated in the past. So it's 10 different things that were identified on screen, and one of them was, the last one, is what you can do for yourself to assist this repair process. I don't need anybody, or Englishman or Scotsman or anybody to come and tell me I'm pretty and that I should do this or that or no ad because they say this line of clothes is best for whatever. No, I don't go by that. I go by my own sense of being, and my sense of being tells me I can decide what clothes I want to wear when and how. So Self-reliance is thinking about you. Nobody must tell you you should reshape your nose, but the reparation process undertakes, as I said, is areas for government. So if you have a water shortage, environmental problems, that's covered in the 10-point plan, what was caused to the colonies by the rapid deforestation that occurred to plant sugar or ginger or whatever else they planted. And as a consequence, the population has not been able to come to terms with the cost of such activities. So that is where it is hoped and expected that money would be channeled from the persons who caused the problem in the first instance.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Brother Bamoyana, formerly known as Jesse Daniel. But of course, you know, as we elevate our minds, we are now adopting our own self-image. So I am Bamoyana. You know, there is a quote by one Brother Chinua Achebe that says, "Until the lion learns to write, the hunt will always glorify the hunter," meaning that we have to learn to begin to tell our own story. And for quite some time, we have adopted the story that was told by some racist colonial historians. And it's time that we need to start to change and tell our own story as we know it. Having said that, one of the first things that I think that we need to do, again, is language. Language is so important at how we define ourselves. We have been told for the longest while that we were enslaved or that we were slaves, that we were part of a transatlantic slave trade. Well, I want to say today that that's a false narrative. African people were never slaves or enslaved. We were prisoners of war. We were held in captivity and treated to make us feel that we have been slaves. So we have actually been programmed to think that we are slaves or we were slaves. Because why? That is a way of belittling ourselves, shaming us, and making us feel less than human beings. But when we begin to retell the story, of course, it doesn't mean that all the atrocities that were committed against us, these are real. We don't deny all the atrocities, all the wickedness, all the evil that was committed against us as a people. However, we never surrendered. And that's why I say we are prisoners of war. We are in a war, a protracted war that has been going on, some say for as long as 400 years. But we are in a war, and until we start to understand that we need to take charge of our own selves, until we begin to teach our children or the next generation that they have a responsibility because we're in a war, and until we begin to help them to understand who they are and what they represent, we will continue to now become slaves. But we were never slaves. That's the first thing I want to see. And I want to raise the point that if we had to self-repair, and I like you mentioned about Ubuntu, because that is very important to us as a people. And as some said, that is only African people could have Ubuntu. How are we going to get to the minds of our, because right now, as was said just now, we have a missing generation of young people. We see what's happening to our young people on the streets. Most of them, they don't want to go back to work the land. How are we going to be able to find a way to get back into the minds of our people the importance of owning land, of working the land, so that we can become self-sufficient and be able to uplift ourselves? Because we have a serious problem, and the society itself has changed the mindset of our people so that land feels like if it's hard work. So we have to, they give our people, you work 2-3 hours a day, or come out and you work and you cut some bush, and you go there and get some money, and we're content with that. The rest of the time, what we spend doing, you're hanging on the blocks or doing little menial stuff. So this plantation system, this plantation economy that we have been programmed to continues to have an impact on us up to this day. So I want to know how are we, if we had to self-repair, what are the steps? And I'm asking the question here. I mean, I might have my own thoughts, but I would like to hear from you. What are some of the steps we can take to really help, especially with our younger generations, who are supposed to be the ones supposed to take the lead, who we have to pass the baton to? How are we going to get them to be here? Because they're not here today. Well, I'm thankful I see one or two young ones here, which is good. But we need more. What are the suggestions that we need to use to get these young people into the midst of what's happening? Thank you.
What I would say, one, that what children are taught at schools has a role to play, right? The textbooks, if you take a Caribbean history or textbook and you see the word Tobago in it 3 times, you're lucky, right? So there is where we start. Secondly, what you do. Now, one of the problems we have with food, and particularly with locally produced food, is the high levels of chemicals that are used by some farmers in the quest to produce more. So I take my little piece and I grow my own vegetables, my own lettuce, and my own seasonings, because I am absolutely sure there are no chemicals in that. But you see those people who produce large quantities of those for export from when I say export, within the country, and some of it comes to Tobago, the levels of chemical use, and in some cases very toxic chemicals, is high. So if we in all our own little homes do our little gardening, we are sending a signal. The young people will grow up doing that. I have a grandson, and he has chive, lettuce, tomato, okra in an apartment on the porch that he tends to. So we have to look at that. We have to find all kinds of ways of encouraging our young people to be more involved. We have a very destructive rate of young people with diabetes. They're losing limbs, because of the high sugar content and the high chemical content, the high consumption of fast foods that do nothing for anybody. And it is always very pathetic to see somebody so young pass because of how they have been living. So we have to get the message across. And it is not going to come easily because we have to outdo the ads that are there. If you check the people who have money, they put these ads and they make the food look nice until you eat it.
Alafia Ekasan. I am Akila Efuntade Jaramugi, part Trinidad and part Tobago. But I want to say thanks for that enlightening presentation, your enlightening presentation. I am sure most of us in the room, I would say, converted already, on their path to self-repair. And my big concern is about collective liberation. Sometimes we talk to the converted, and those who need the information the most are the ones who stay outside. We are looking at systemic racism. We are looking at a system that is set up by the colonizers and that have not changed. From the top down, from the government, Westminster system, from the churches, the schools, the health system, and everything. You touched on most of these things. You touched on the education. You touched on the food. You touched on entrepreneurial ways of life. You touched on, we call it, you'd say Lantern, we call it Gayap, in Trinidad and so on. But how can we get the young people, how can we get a shift in the system when it's deeply rooted? You tell them put on the African clothes, they feel like, somebody will laugh at them. You tell them do something, they feel, so how can we find a way, especially within the education system, to unlearn what was taught, because it is deep and we need to address it like urgently. Yeah, but I say at least we're starting somewhere to repair, but I'm talking about that collective liberation. Yeah, thanks.
What I will say to that is this. We have a pattern. Emancipation Day, Tobago Day, what signals are you sending? Is that these things are good for one day. You don't want that. And when it is Emancipation Day, the stores of some of the businessmen are filled with African fabric, and everybody who intend to participate feels obliged to buy and promote the business of somebody who is out there making money over what is seen as a belief. Now, as a fashion, sorry, so it's a one-day fashion or a two-day fashion. It has to be more than that. It has to be a conviction that this is how you want to look, and not necessarily patronize in a large way anybody who puts a lot of fabric out there, made in China, by the way. So it is not even African. So that's what I say. But it has to be that we target the problem from several fronts. How people are taught, how they understand what was happening. And there's no sense in teaching people about emancipation. It was not liberation. It was something that was a process that those people who became really emancipated were those people who went out there and acquired a piece of land and cultivated. Now we have TV and everything that you can't get. Right? People have to learn that where food is concerned, where anything that you have to ingest, you have to be careful with what you're eating. You have to select. The whole process of business food has led to a number of dangers. They refry oil. They've used oil to fry and refry and refry, and the evidence is there. The research tells you that that is not good for your system. We have a high rate of cancer right across the Caribbean. And it has been identified in some cases with that kind of consumption. So the public awareness needs to be strengthened. Now we're fighting against the media and the people with money. We have to go through the systems in the schools. We have to do it in our homes, and we have to show examples by the things we do.
Pleasant good night to each and every one.
Good night.
I am Mbau Muheni, and I must say that I only heard about this about 25 minutes before the starting time while I was on my way home. And I hustled to come back here. I reached about 3 minutes before 7 o'clock.
We're very thankful.
And I must say that the issue at hand is critical, okay? At the individual level, at the level of the families, at the level of the community. So I must compliment this initiative, which needs to be expanded, which needs to be pursued. Okay. I would like to say that it's a challenge, however. And I would want to raise a particular thought pattern. Because sometimes things happen and we say that, okay, we have been influenced, and we know that there's the efforts that are made to guide and misguide us, to make us more susceptible to control. And sometimes we need to think and to observe and to reflect. Because there are things that go back several years, which my mind could now begin to appreciate. And I could remember when I was a youngster at secondary school level, I used to be seeing these ads in the newspapers, the career woman, and having the women look so lovely and in their outfit as a career woman. And they began also to tell our women, don't depend on any man, work for your own money. Not appreciating that it was not a woman depending on a man. It was a woman depending on the man, but the man depending on the woman as well, because both had their roles to play. And what they were able to do is manipulate our women out of the homes. So when they started to bring in the KFC and the Starbucks now and whatever, that was our lunch. Whereas prior to that, the woman anchored the home, gave us nutritious meals, right? And also guided the children. So as the children came home, Carlin, how was your day at the school? There was love. But today, both the mother and the father are out there in the jungle. So when Carlin comes home, it is like, look, Carlin, right now my head hurt. Put on the television. Right? So that love has gone out of not all the homes, but it has gone out of several homes. The majority. So the point I'm making is that it is by throwing my mind back a few decades and remembering what was happening then, because oftentimes the system works very slowly and gradually. So by the time they achieve their objective, it becomes as if it's normal. That is how it should be. I would want to raise this as well because it is something that is baffling my mind. Someone goes out Independence Night to celebrate Trinidad and Tobago becoming independent, 31st of August, 1962. But they try to appreciate what independence means. All they are hearing is foreign music. So they call on the DJ and say, could we get a calypso? No, this is our independence. We have to celebrate our art, our farmers. We have to be approached. We have to recognize we have a responsibility. No? The DJ puts on the calypso, and the audience boils them down. This is not carnival. We don't want that. The question that I'm asking is, how do our people get manipulated? What are the measures that are used to manipulate our people, that our own culture, we reach that point where we shackle our own culture between January and February? Well, my organization, which is NJAC and Troward, NECC, we took Calypso out of Carnival, because we started having events every month end involving Calypso. But at first, it was like, no, we don't want to hear that. That is for Carnival. How do you make a people, right, believe that something that they created has to be shackled between 2 months?
Well, I think we have to start by educating people. The shackling of events into a confined time period started and was aggravated by the churches. So the churches, you don't want this, no calypso, because you couldn't sing calypso during the Christian Lent period, you know, so because you could sing other vulgar kinds of songs, but not a calypso. So we have to get rid of this. As I pointed out, this Tobago Day, this one day, and this blue food for, if you're doing blue food, we're doing blue food. And we really should eat the blue food. I tell you that better for you than other pasta and other stuff that people think are sophisticated kinds of foods. So we have to do that. We have to encourage that kind of thinking. And that if you want to wear African clothes, you wear African clothes. It doesn't have to be an emancipation day where no emancipation took place, by the way, as I pointed out. That emancipation is a process that you liberate yourself and you determine. And, I will tell you, if I become prime minister tomorrow, I know I would last 3 days. First thing is going here. I don't see I should use foreign exchange to buy hair or nails. So by the time I pass that law, I'm gone. I will say my prayers. But we attach importance to that, right? If you feel you are pretty by putting on the nails that you can't, yes, you type with a joint rather than with a finger, but this is all part of what you think is important, what makes you you, and we have to make people accept how they are. That you don't need to try to remake yourself, but you are liberated enough to accept you as what you see in the mirror. But if you think you could look like one of the dolls that come up on TV and you pink up here and you red up there, and it's a thought. It's the thought processes that matters. It is a language. What you use, your language is as good as everybody. Jamaica produced a Bible in Jamaican, right? And we move away from this old thing about English is better. It isn't. And when you go to England, you see all the people who go to school learning French, Spanish, Dutch, all kinds of things. But we down here in the college give up our natural language and we learn English only. And so we are so dispossessed, we can't communicate with the rest of the world. But it's an ongoing process. It's nothing that will happen overnight. We have to keep working on it in all sections of the society. Yes, definitely. When you start, it spiral out. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Barris.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I just want to at least congratulate my teacher. She taught me at Roxborough Secondary School. I will not allow that opportunity to not congratulate her on her presentation tonight. And at least she still has that touch to transfer information. My name is Ellis Barry. She just said it there, so I didn't want to be repetitive of my name. She said it. So having been my teacher and having learned so much from her, and still going to learn more, and I've learned more tonight, because the way the presentation was, it was real and down to earth and roots-like. And if we should really understand what Dr. Pemberton put across here tonight, I think we should have a changed mindset on how we're going to go forward. Because it's apparent that we have totally lost our way and our moorings are totally out of order. So what we have to do is to try to understand what she said, how we can bring things anew, because it's apparent that we have not appreciated ourselves the way it's supposed to be appreciated. We do not appreciate agriculture the way it's supposed to be appreciated, so we lost it and dropped everything, and that we are bringing in this heavy amount of imported chickens and meats, and we know that the chickens have a lot of chemicals in them, which is like you have to inject those chickens at the early age about 3 times with chemicals that you could get breast chicken. And so when you go to the fried chicken shop, they ask you leg, breast, wing, or as the case may be, but those same wings and breasts, they are injecting chemicals into them. And when I was younger man at university, I was pursuing knowledge about what has happened to some of our young people. You see they're having breasts, young boys having breasts. It is the injection of those hormones in those chickens that are causing the entire situation the way as it is. And therefore, we have to teach them. They don't understand and they don't know the importance of watching what you eat. Because if they are not aware, they will continue, and it's like diabetes and high blood pressure takes over the whole country. So I would ask Dr. Pemberton one little question. How would we go about getting our young people educated? What can we do to the system that we can enable ourselves to appreciate ourselves more in the rebuilding process of ourselves? Thank you.
We have to make some serious changes to the school curriculum. The school curriculum is designed as closed areas, separate, disparate. So if you're doing science, you're not doing art. You don't have time for language. If you want to be an engineer, you have to do chemistry and physics. If you want to do medicine, you have to do chemistry, physics, biology. So I once spoke to a group of students, and I said to a young man, the group had, I think, 3 people who were sixth form history students, and the rest of them were science students. Miss, we were doing science, so we didn't have to do any history. So I asked the hopeful doctor, I said, if you have an office and a lady comes in and you ask, like what doctors ask, how you're doing or what is your problem? And if she say, my bushette drop, what are you going to do? You look at me. I said, you don't know bushette is drop? You never heard about dropping bushette? You look at the diagram of the human body and see nothing but bushette there. But some lady in the community used to push back the bushette and relieve the pain. So something was happening there. And if we go to a doctor with bushette, they laugh because they don't have no bushette in the human body. So that is to tell you that you're not in touch with the culture. You have to understand. Or if the woman come and tell you, our fireballs, what is that? You don't know. Fibroids, but you don't know the culture. You don't know what people telling you. So you will probably go and diagnose this woman something that she don't have and probably kill her in the process. So this is what I'm saying. We have too many closed sections in education. If you're doing this, you can't do that. Everybody should have a broad education. The curriculum must offer everyone the same broad, and then you specialize. You go to Finland and they don't give home lessons at all in the schools, none, right? And all the children come out and they could speak 10 languages and they could do this and they do the engineering. You go to Holland and you have the chance, you go into any university and you could come out an aeronautical engineer or something. But here, to get there, you have to do chemistry, physics, and maths, and nothing else matters. The engineer will tell you it's a profession, and the people have to be able to do this and that, and after they come out with a degree and they have to go and speak to a community, you wonder where they learn anything. They complain, they can't write a report and stuff like that. So we have to revamp the system of education. It really is not satisfying the needs of a developing society.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Otto Isaac. Plenty people know me as Trevor, plenty people know me as Otto, so I have to put the both of them together, right? Yes, I said my name, Trevor Otto Isaac. Plenty people know me as Trevor and plenty people know me as Otto, so I have to put both of them together. So the presentation this evening was very good. Very enlightening. As we're talking about the education, I'll just continue on that because I think one of the tools used to take us away from what we're supposed to be, is education. And as I've been saying it openly to everybody, as a past student of Bishop's High School, I could not participate in the 100-year celebration because simply that education took us away from how we're supposed to live within our environment. So I think it was worse for us because right now we are self-colonizing ourselves because of the education that we got from the colonizers. So the question is asked, where do we go from here? I think first of all we need to understand the definition or the root of the word reparation, and that is to repair. But you can only repair something that is damaged. So we need to understand the damage. And once we understand the damage, then we could start to fix it. And the damage is very deep. And one of the things or the main thing in the damage was to say that we are not good enough and we have to depend on others for our survival. And today, that whole idea of dependency is rampant. We talk about foreign investment. We continue to talk about tourism, and we continue to depend on people for our survival. How could we talk about resilience? How could we be resilient when we depend on somebody else? You can't ask your neighbor to lift weights if you want to get strong. So there are lots of things, and very, very deep, that we need to get into to understand and appreciate where we are. The education, the religion, the economics, how all these things were made so that they can control us and take us away from where we're supposed to be. Even the ownership of land. When we say we own land now, we decide what we want to do with the land because it's our land. Years ago, it was land owning man, and man respected land. So the things that we would do to the land, we would not have done them then. So there are lots of activities that we need to really, really look at, and I'm happy to see this group of people here, and I'm hoping that in the Tobago space, we can use this as the body that would be the core for the development of this thing, because we just have to do it and get it right so that other people could see what we're doing and jump on board. Just to tell people, well, you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do this and you need to do that. Yes, they may be looking at it and they may be wanting to do it, but they have to be the trust and the confidence that who talking about it actually doing it. So I'm really hoping that we could come together. I would like to be at any level to assist and to talk about what the damage is, to talk about what it continues to do to us as we continue to live and think that we are living in a more developed and a better state of life when we truly not. Thank you.
It's a good night.
That's the last question, yeah, put it.
Yeah, let them, we need.
must wrap in 10 minutes.
Yeah, good.
Good night, everyone.
Try to keep your comments short, please. Short and to the point.
First, I want to recognize that in the beginning of this service, I recognized there was a prayer. And it makes me recognize that somebody here believes in God. Because you don't pray to the devil, you pray to God. And you ask God for his intervention in this meeting so that it could be successful and productive. I'd like to endorse the ideas that this organization is trying to achieve. But it is a very difficult situation. It's not going to be easy. And the reason why I made a reference to the prayer and to God is because I want to make a reference to the Bible. Down and saw that they were in one accord and was building this tower up into heaven. Because the intention was that if another flood came, they would be saved. And God confounded the speech. And when God confounded the speech, they could no longer continue to build a tower. There would be many people who would not agree or have various views with what you are trying to achieve. I just want to let you be sure. I look around and I wonder who makes the policies in this country. We talk about education and health and various things. And sometimes the policies that are made doesn't benefit us in any way. And I believe it's because of your foresight and seeing what is happening to a man that you are trying to make a change. But some people don't want to change because they want to stay in the same way that they are. They feel comfortable. So I just want to say, I appreciate what you are doing, and I pray that God will strengthen you and your organization, that you will be able to be successful in your undertakings. I thank you.
Stephanie George, good evening. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. The information we have here, each one teach one. We have to be our own change agent. We cannot wait on our colonial masters to do that for us anymore. I question myself when I looked at the behavior of the tourists when they come. And I wonder, where do they get the money? And they always come with a smile. And they give gifts. And the Bible says you could deceive somebody with a gift. And it's something that we have to bear in mind. All the monies that they would have made from slavery, they are enjoying it now. So they can go into this office and they would say, I want to go to the Caribbean. And they said, okay, how much is going to cost you? And they give them the purchase order or whatever, the voucher, and they said, they give them the amount of money, so they come down here, they gallivant themselves, they have a good time. Each one could own a slave. So they either take a young man, so he would please them, or they take a young girl accordingly. They might ask them to, they would purchase land, whether it's in Castaro or Charlottesville. They like the outskirts, they don't like to be in the bright areas. And so they hire somebody to take care of that house while they're abroad. And when winter comes, they come home and they take a vacation. And these are things that we ought to look and teach our children. If it is a business partnership, you must benefit. You must not be a slave anymore and be able to contribute to the building of our communities. So it is each one teaching one. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Bridget Smith, citizen of this country, resident of the city of Scarborough, really, Calder Hall, concerned citizen. Thank you, Dr. Pemberton. Firstly, two things I think we need entry points in terms of intervention, and awareness is a huge one. And in order to make persons aware, we kind of have to connect the present day issues and all the things that we've been talking about in terms of health and food and all those other things. We have to be able to connect it to why those are the manifestations, because we need self-repair, right? Because we can have discourse on bad food, bad behaviors, us not being together as a community, and the manifestations that we see not easily connected to economics or who we are as a people and the repair that needs to take place. So I think the entry points in terms of awareness, especially in the education realm, in terms of the education system, we have to be able to reach the young people and say, this manifestation you're seeing is because you don't know who you are in terms of identity. I think we have to connect those two things. So I think that's really important, because we could be talking in two different realms, right? And not making the connect to reparation. And the other thing I was going to say is that we kind of preach into some of the choir here, and we need to be able to turn this out in some way. And yes, education is one entry point, but awareness, and then how we highlight the problem. And also the other thing I wanted to say was measurement. How severe is the problem in different populations? So those of us who have some sense of where we are, who we are as a people, you know, some level of liberty in our minds, some true emancipation, what is the level of awareness where we are? Certain populations, certain age groups, as you see, I'm in my, well, I wouldn't say, but mid, you know, young still in my mind, not so young maybe chronologically anymore, but I'm not seeing many of, you know, right, the younger ones. So we need to measure the burden of the problem at different levels, yes, in terms of age, but exposure and just consciousness, so that we can have a sense of where the problem is. That's kind of the work that I do from day to day. I like measurements, I like definitions. So how great is the problem, and therefore where the strength of the intervention is needed and who we need to impact who, right? So I hope I was able to articulate clearly. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Akil Abdullah from Canby. It would be extremely difficult for us to achieve anything real where there is an absence of data, the scientific kind, mind you, a structured, action-oriented plan, and the resources for sustainable and impactful outcomes. Otherwise, we will continue to talk and talk and talk. I say that on the backdrop of when I was a teacher, and my boss is, well, my former boss is sitting to the front there, where I taught at Elizabeth College. Some of us know it as Morin. Today, I am happy to present to you that plan. Currently, Dr. Vanus James, and I don't know why he didn't, share it with you all, but Dr. Vanus James and Dr. Denise Soifat Angus currently is training people on what it would take for us to lift ourselves from this situation that we are all discussing here this evening. So if you all want to learn about that, you all can speak to them after this session, right? Tonight, I really came here to be a firecracker in all your ways because I love the idea of speaking about reparation. I must apologize for being tardy. I came late. Well, sorry, I must apologize for being tardy, right? And I hope at another time I would have the opportunity to really deliver something to you all from my thoughts on the subject of reparation as it relates to our people and our community. Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay, this is the last one. Good night. Miss Jean. Hello. Miss Jean? 1 minute. Okay. Okay.
Two words, right? She said 2 words. Jeffrey the Freitas. She said 2 words. Yeah, good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I just want to find out one question. I'm not talking.
Jean,
Huh?
after me.
Let me ask my question, please.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. This was an extremely motivational and informative lecture by Rita Pemberton and Mr. Lovell. I've only seen them on television together with Mr. Vanos James here. So it's the first time I'm seeing these people live. So afterwards, I want to autograph. Okay. Now, first of all, I just love, she said, I can't talk too long. So what I'm going to make it clear. I did not hear from Mrs. Rita Pemberton anything about the internet. And I found that amazing because we are living in an age where the internet is the greatest invention of our time. And that must have an impact on what we are all trying to do. That's number one. And then number two, to Dr. Lover, didn't Scotland contribute a vast sum of money towards the university in connection with reparation some time ago? Because Ms. Rita Pemberton said that reparation is nothing to do with finance. We're not going to be sitting down waiting for any money.
No.
What could we get? Will we be getting more money from other countries because of reparation? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Very quickly, reparations has to do with money, but it does not have to only do with money. So it's a broadening of the idea. Yes, University of Glasgow did pay some reparations. Other private families and institutions have paid. None of the governments that are involved or responsible have yet, except for the Dutch government, made an apology and they made a pledge to pay, to contribute. None of them have done that as yet. But it has to come. It is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It is a matter of time because this is not going away. This ideas ebb and they flow and they wane and they strengthen and they weaken, but this idea will never die. So it will come. What we've tried to do is to center Caribbean people in the thing. We don't want to be waiting to exhale forever for $1. And as I said when I spoke very early, we have the ability to look at the areas where we find shortcomings of our own decision and fix. And I'm hushing them out now.
Yeah, pleasant good night, everyone. My name is Carlos Guy. I do have a different name as yet. the first time I'm coming to something like this, I heard about it on Tambourine, so I was very interested in reparation. But when I came tonight, it seemed as though it shifted to self-repair. I want to know how far along is the process in the actual financial thing, and what are the plans of getting the actual money maybe to build universities and that kind of thing. Because I'm ignorant to the thing. So this is the first time and I'm interested in it.
So you want to learn? What do you learn?
All right. We know that, for example, there was just a UN resolution declaring the trade in captured Africans one of the gravest crimes against humanity. And all of these nations signed on to it. The nations most responsible abstained. Yeah. Three nations voted against. The usual suspects voted against. That might seem insignificant, but it's important because we've come to the point now where the world understands that this is a situation that has to be dealt with. I am saying to you, at some point, the nations that are responsible will have to come to the table. There is no definite timeline on that, unfortunately, but do not feel that this thing has not been successful. There are many cases of companies, families that formerly owned plantations making reparations, universities. It is just not at the point where the governments have stood up to the plate yet, but it is inevitable. I'll say it again, this is not going away.
Good night, everybody. Well, we've reached the point where we have our vote of thanks. And just before I do that, I want to assure everybody that the conference that is planned would take care of a lot of the questions that are being asked, because the conference is going to look at the programs that would actually bring the self-repair. So don't be fearful and think that we are just talking. This is the first phase, as our chairman, Mervyn O'Neill, said. So we are going to be looking, and we would like you, please, to go into your communities and continue the conversation. This is a good start. Go into the communities and let your people know that we are discussing reparation in Tobago in a serious way, and we are intending to begin by looking at self-repair in the areas of education, health, and community development and empowerment. So I think that should help Vanas to answer his question, that community development and empowerment would be a very important aspect of the conference to come. So it is my pleasure and privilege now to say thank you to all our participants in this evening's meeting. And I'll start with Dr. Pemberton. And Dr. Pemberton was really good at helping us to look at what are some of the foundational things that we would look at in terms of self-repair, the legacy, and all that is associated with the legacy, as well as those guiding philosophies that we seem to have lost along the way. Dr. Pemberton, thank you very, very much for making it as simple as possible for us, for helping us to open our eyes to some of what we do on a daily basis, and the association with resistance, all the celebrations and so on. That was an eye-opener for me. And I was happy to sit and really listen. So thank you so much, Dr. Pemberton. We received your talk, your lecture very, very well. And we look forward to hearing from you further at a later date. Yes? I want to thank our host, Dr. Easlyn Mackenzie. And Dr. Mackenzie always brings life to our forum. And I want to thank you, Dr. Mack. And like I said, you are my adopted aunt, so you are Auntie Easlyn. Listra Kudjo, thank you for your prayer. You opened with prayer for us, and we want to thank you. Chief Awo Olofen Ogunsola, thank you for the libations. Dr. Lovell, we want to thank Dr. Lovell for his introduction to the repair campaign, and we look forward to continuing to work with the repair campaign. We look forward to the support of the repair campaign for that Sankofa conference, and it's very important that the repair campaign and the Tobago CivilNet and Tobago Council of Elders continue to work together to make self-repair happen in Tobago. Cameron Bruno, Creative Expression, thank you. I heard you mention Bongo Night, and I'm always excited when I hear Bongo Night because I find Bongo Night tends to be a very exciting event. And I look, I don't look forward to people dying, but I always look forward to a good Bongo Night. So thank you, Cameron. Mervyn O'Neill, thanks for the information about the Tobago Sankofa Conference. And I trust that people are going to start to speak about this conference. Look around at the people who you would like to bring to the conference with you and get your communities interested and excited about participation in this conference, especially the young people. We are looking forward to having a lot of the young people in the conference. Those who handled our media this evening, we thank you. The cameraman, the sound technician, we want to thank you for your support. And we want to thank all the participants from the floor who answered, who asked questions, who made comments, and so. And you all of you added to the richness of the evening. The Tobago Council of Elders and CivilNet, thank you for your planning, and thank you for your commitment to taking this whole event forward. At this time, let us pray. Father, we thank you for the evening that we've had. We thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that came to the table this evening. As we go to our homes, we pray that you will go with us, that you will bless, protect us, guide us, and guard us. And we pray, God, that Tobago will be repaired. We pray that we will get the resources to repair it. We pray that we will have the wisdom to deal with the resources when they come. And we pray, Father, that the process of self-repair will be a joyful one and one that really elevates us as an island and lifts us and help us to become all that we can be. And we ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, refreshments are going to be served at this time, I assume, so go out to the door. Thank you. And reach home safely, everybody.